This is an allegedly true story that took place in the 1800s in Lee County, Virginia. And it's about a spirit of a woman that was unalived and she wanted her justice and her body buried in the church cemetery. See, a preacher was coming through town and it was pouring the sleet, the snow, and the ice. And he knocked on a farmer's door and said, "Hey, Mr. Farmer, can I stay here for the evening or at least till this weather passes because this is god awful?" And the farmer said, "Hey, you can come in and eat some dinner. I'll feed you, but I don't have room here. There's no beds left. How about this? There is a house just right up the road in a field, and I can put you in there for the night. I'll even help you chop up some wood and get your fire started. And hey, you can stay there. But let me warn you before you go there. It's haunted, man. If you're afraid of ghosts, don't go there. But I'm telling you, that place, it's real haunted." Well, the preacher said he wasn't afraid of ghosts, and the farmer took him down to the house and did what he said he was going to do, chop some wood and started him a fire. Well, the preacher sat down in the warm cabin, in that nice rocking chair right by that fire, and he was reading from the Bible. And all of a sudden, he started getting real comfortable and closing his eyes and nodding off. Well, he was awoken by some loud banging coming from the roof, and it sounded like rocks were being pelted at the roof. Well, he noticed his fire was about out, so he jumped up as quick as he could, and he lit a match, and he ran to the door, and he looked around, and he didn't see a thing, nothing. So he kind of shook it off, maybe it was the wind. So he came back in and threw a couple logs on the fire, stoked it, and grabbed his Bible and began reading again. And that's when he heard it. It was these weird groaning sounds, this raw moan, like someone had their mouth full of dirt and was trying to scream. And he listened and listened and he didn't hear anything. Well, then a ruckus happened in the cellar, right there in the basement, like somebody was being unalived and they were being tumbled and thrown and just, on. Well, he kind of freaked out and sat up quickly in his chair and looked around, and he all of a sudden heard a scream, and there was 4 screams in a row, and it was of a woman. So he grabbed a stick and he put his back against the mantle of that fireplace, and that's when he heard the footsteps coming to the door, right to that front door, and he watched as the handle turned ever so slowly and that door began to open up. And with his back pressed up against the mantle and that stick in his hand, he watched as a woman apparition walked into the room, crying, sobbing, and then she vanished and the door slammed shut. Shaken up, that preacher sat back down in that chair and he grabbed his Bible and he stoked the fire a little bit more. And that's when he heard it again, sobbing, coming to the door again. And it opened the door. And there she was standing right there behind him. And he stood up and turned to her and said, "You know what? In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, what do you want?" And the woman slowly looked up from her sobbing, and she tried to gather some words. The spirit grabbed his jacket and hit her knees and was looking up at him with black eyes and no nose. Her hair all tangled up around her head. She looked to be about in her 20s. She smelled of dirt and death. The preacher was paralyzed, and the spirit hung on to him as she said to him, "I just want to be properly buried. That's all I want. And my bones are underneath the rock hearse down there. All my bones. You see, what happened was my sweetheart unalived me. He wanted me for my money. And that's what he done. But after he unalived me, he couldn't find it. And if you just grant me these 2 requests, I'll tell you where that money is. But number 1, I want my bones buried in the church cemetery properly. And number 2, I want justice for the man that unalived me. I want you to take all the people around here and I want you to throw them a dinner tomorrow night. And I want you to take my pinky bone on my left hand and put it on a plate. And then I want you to pass that plate around, and whoever that bone sticks to is the one that unalived me." And that's just what he did. Him and the farmer gathered all the bones and they took it and had a funeral at the church for him. And then they cooked this big fancy meal up and invited all the folks to come eat it. And the last thing he did was put that left hand pinky bone right on a plate. And they started passing it around. Well, it got to the older fellow, the one that was pretty big in the church, one of the good ones, And that's when that pinky stuck to him. Well, he got up in a panic and started freaking out, screaming, I don't know, get it off me, get it off me, get it off me. And then he started confessing to what he had done to that woman. They gathered up that unaliver and they took him back to the ropes. They took care of it themselves because they did mountain justice back in them days. Then the next evening, the preacher returned to the house and he listened to the spirit as she appeared to him again and found the money. And after that, it said that that house wasn't haunted no more. That there was justice for that woman's soul. And ain't nobody ever talked about it no more. And it said that preacher's jacket looked like its hands from that spirit had burned itself into the fabric. Now, if you've got a neat story you'd like to tell me, I'd love to hear it. Y'all let me know if you like the story right there in the comment section. And don't forget to follow me for more paranormal stories.